The hum of the ship filled the silence. Metallic walls glowed faint blue under the steady lights of the Halvern, a vessel older than most of its crew. Every sound, the soft hiss of air vents, the clicking of instruments, echoed through the narrow corridors like a heartbeat. In the medical bay, Captain Elias Ward sat up slowly. His muscles ached as if fire ran through every nerve. The room felt wrong, the gravity, the light, even the air. He touched the bed's edge and realized the metal was smooth, not the standard earth alloy he knew. Everything around him was foreign. Across the room stood Dr. Vera Talun, arms folded, her silver skin glowing softly. She watched him carefully, her expression a mix of curiosity and caution. "You should rest," she said gently. "Your body has been asleep for centuries." Elias looked at her, still trying to understand. "You said 500 years. "Yes," Vera replied. "The year is 3120 by your human calendar. You were found drifting in deep space aboard a ship called the ESS Valor." Elias took a deep breath. "Then everyone I knew, everything, it's all gone." "I'm sorry," Vera said softly. She hesitated, then added, "You are the only known human left." The words sank into him like ice. For a long moment he said nothing. His eyes stared at the floor, lost in memories of faces long dead, of oceans, cities, skies, when all gone. Then slowly he lifted his head. "What happened to Earth?" Vera's voice was careful. "Records show environmental collapse, wars, and mass migration. The transmission stopped without explanation. Many assume your kind destroyed itself." Elias gave a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "That sounds like us," he said. "But we were survivors, always." Vera tilted her head. "Even survivors reach their end." Elias met her gaze. "You'd be surprised how long humans can last when they refuse to die." Something in his tone, in the quiet fire, unsettled her. She turned away, opening a holoscreen. "You should eat. Commander Valen wants to speak with you once you're stable." Hours later, Elias stood in the command center. The crew stared as he entered, a strange figure among tall aliens of various shapes and colors. His uniform was torn and ancient, his boots scratched and faded. But there was something about the way he carried himself, upright, alert, eyes sharp, that demanded attention. Commander Rhys Valen nodded to him. "Captain Ward, I'm impressed you're standing already." "Captain?" Elias asked, glancing around. "I haven't been a captain for half a millennium." "Once a captain, always a captain," Valen replied with a small grin. "We were attacked last week by pirates. Since then, they've been following us through this sector. Your timing is interesting," Vera spoke from the side. "He just woke up. He's not ready for—" Elias cut her off. "Pirates?" Valen nodded. "Yes. A group calling themselves the Voidborn. They scavenge ships for tech and biodata. They think your vessel may have carried something valuable." Elias frowned. "If they think that, they won't stop. What's your defensive status?" The commander blinked, surprised. "We have shields and 2 rail batteries, but the crew isn't trained for combat. We're a research ship." Elias stepped forward, scanning the tactical display. "You're traveling through a nebula. Limited visibility. Use it," he tapped a control. "Hide power signatures, deploy decoy beacons, and reroute navigation to drift mode. Pirates track heat and movement. Make them think you're debris." Valen raised an eyebrow. "You seem to know your tactics." 5 centuries of sleep doesn't erase training," Elias said simply. Vera watched silently. There was a confidence in him, calm, deliberate, that made even the alien officers listen. When Valen gave the order to follow his suggestion, no one objected. Hours passed. The Halvern drifted quietly through the nebula, its engines powered down. Only the soft hum of life support remained. Outside, the gas clouds glowed like slow lightning. Then, the radar beeped. "Contact," an officer said. "Multiple ships approaching." Pirate signatures confirmed. Elias leaned over the screen. 3 light cruisers, maybe 4. "They're scanning." Valen looked uneasy. "We can't fight them." "Then don't," Elias said. "Let them come closer. When they pass our outer hull, fire all external thrusters. Push the gas field, create turbulence. It'll mess with their sensors." Valen hesitated but followed his lead. The bridge lights dimmed. Moments later, the nebula outside erupted in blinding clouds of silver gas. The pirates' ships twisted in confusion, their scanners overwhelmed. The Halvern slipped away quietly, hidden in the storm. When the danger passed, the crew broke into cheers. Valen turned to Elias with a grin. I don't know how you did that, but you saved us. Elias just shrugged. Old habits. Vera stepped closer, her eyes studying him. You planned that in seconds. Your mind works differently. Elias smiled faintly. That's what we humans did best. Adapt. Later in the observation deck, Vera found him staring out at the nebula. The stars shimmered beyond the glass, distant and cold. You surprised everyone today, she said softly. Elias didn't turn. I used to lead people through worse. Your people must have been remarkable, she said. He smiled sadly. They were stubborn, brave, sometimes foolish. But when the universe said give up, they said not yet. Vera folded her hands. I studied your kind for years. You were supposed to be extinct. I told millions that humans couldn't survive their own flaws. Elias turned to her. You were wrong. The words were simple, not arrogant, just certain. Vera felt them cut through her calm like a blade of truth. She tried to recover. Even if one survived, what difference does that make now? Your species is gone. Your world is gone. He stepped closer, his expression steady. You think history ends when no one remembers. But as long as I'm here, as long as I breathe, humanity still exists. She looked into his eyes and saw something she couldn't explain. A fierce light. A refusal to break. It wasn't pride or anger. It was pure will. You don't understand, he continued. We never saw death as the end. We called it a challenge. The ship's alarm suddenly blared. Red lights flashed through the deck. Commander Valen's voice shouted over the intercom. All crew to stations. Pirates have found us again. Vera and Elias ran toward the bridge. The radar showed 4 enemy ships closing fast. Valen cursed under his breath. They must have tracked our ion trail. Elias studied the display. You can't outrun them. You'll have to fight. Valen grimaced. We're scientists, not soldiers. Elias's voice hardened. Then follow my lead. He pointed to the tactical map. Turn the ship toward the nebula's core. Increase energy in the starboard batteries. When they follow, cut the power for 5 seconds. Make them think you've gone dead. Then when they get close enough, he tapped the console. Fire everything, Valen stared at him. That's suicide. Elias looked at him calmly. No, that's surprise. There was a brief silence. Then Valen nodded. Do it. The ship trembled as it turned sharply. The nebula thickened outside, clouds glowing electric blue. The pirates closed in, confident of their victory. Then the Halvern went dark. For 5 long seconds the ship seemed lifeless. The pirates slowed, preparing to board. Then boom! Every cannon on the Halvern fired at once. The nebula lit up like a starburst. Shockwaves rippled through space. 2 pirate ships disintegrated instantly, and the rest broke formation, scrambling for cover. The bridge filled with shouts and cheers. Valen clapped Elias on the back. You just saved hundreds of lives. Elias only nodded, his gaze fixed on the fading wreckage outside. It's not over. They'll come again. Vera stepped forward. Then what will you do? He turned to her, eyes calm and certain. The same thing humans have always done. Fight, adapt, and survive. When the battle ended and silence returned, Vera found herself alone in her cabin, staring at her own reflection. Her thoughts raced. For years she had believed humans were a warning, proof that passion without reason led to ruin. But now, after meeting Elias, she saw something else. Humanity's passion was their strength. Their will was their shield. Their flaws were the reason they triumphed. She whispered to herself, maybe. Extinction never truly means the end. Outside, in the quiet darkness of the nebula, the human who was supposed to be a ghost stood watch, a living reminder that history was not over yet. The Halvern drifted quietly through deep space. Its hull bore new scars from the pirate attack, but the crew walked the corridors with pride. The human had saved them. Even those who had doubted him now looked at Captain Elias Ward with respect, and a little fear. Dr. Vera Talon watched him from the observation deck as he worked with the engineers. He moved with purpose, his hands quick and sure, repairing a damaged power conduit as if he had lived aboard the ship for years. He was human, yes, but he was something more. Something no textbook had ever described. She had thought of humans as reckless beings who burned too fast and too bright. But watching Elias now, she saw focus, discipline, and strange hope. A hope that seemed stronger than logic. After hours of work, Elias noticed her standing nearby. He wiped his hands on an old cloth and smiled slightly. "You're staring again, Doctor." Vera blinked. "I was. Observing." "Observing or judging?" he teased lightly. "Observing," she replied with her usual calm tone. "You repaired that system faster than our engineers," Elias shrugged. "I've done worse jobs under fire. Back home we fixed things while ships were burning around us." Vera frowned slightly. "You talk about home as if it still exists." He looked at her, his expression softening. "It does. Maybe not on a map, but here." He tapped his chest. "Home is what you carry inside you." Vera didn't reply. She only watched as he turned back to the controls, his movements steady and sure. Something about his words stayed with her. Later that day, Vera invited Elias to her research chamber. She wanted to learn more, not just about his history, but about the way he thought. "Sit," she said, motioning to a chair. "I want to understand how your people viewed survival." Elias sat leaning back. "We didn't view survival," he said. "We lived it. Every day." Vera activated a hollow screen showing old human war footage in cities. "You fought constantly, against each other, against nature, against extinction. How did you not give up?" Elias chuckled softly. "Because giving up never solved anything. We were stubborn. When the world tried to break us, we got back up." Vera tilted her head. "But logic says endless struggle leads to ruin." "Logic doesn't fix a dying engine or feed a starving child," Elias said quietly. "Willpower does." His tone carried a weight that made her chest tighten. He continued, "Humans didn't survive because we were perfect. We survived because we refused to accept defeat, even when the universe told us it was over." Vera looked at him for a long moment. "You sound proud." He smiled faintly. "Not proud. Just human." As the days passed, Elias became part of the crew. He trained the officers in survival tactics, taught them efficient battle drills, and even helped the young technicians build stronger hull plating using old human design logic. The crew admired him. Some called him the Ghost Captain. Others simply saluted when he passed. But not everyone trusted him. One evening, while the ship was gliding through a radiation belt, a junior officer named Lyra, a tall reptilian alien, confronted him in the corridor. "You don't belong here, human," Lyra hissed. "You're a relic from a dead age. Why should we follow you?" Elias looked at him calmly. "Because you want to stay alive." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You think you're special because you come from myths?" Elias shook his head. "No, I'm not special. I'm just someone who's seen what happens when good people stop trying." He turned and walked away, leaving Lyra speechless. From the nearby doorway, Vera had been watching. She said nothing, but she smiled faintly. That night, the ship entered a dense radiation storm. The warning lights flashed, and Commander Valen called all hands to stations. "Main engines overheating," shouted the engineer. "Shield array losing balance." Elias rushed to the control pit. "Divert auxiliary power from the cargo deck," he ordered. Valen frowned. "That will overload the coolant lines." "Better a burned pipe than a dead crew," Elias replied. He pulled off a panel, sparks flying. Without hesitation, he climbed into the maintenance shaft, his body bathed in light from the overloaded circuits. Vera called out, "You can't go in there, the radiation," but he was already gone. Inside the narrow shaft, heat pressed against his skin. He crawled through, tools clutched in one hand, sweat running down his face. The metal hissed beneath his palms. He found the coolant regulator. Damaged, cracked. He used a manual bypass, hammering the tool into place with his bare hand. The radiation meter on his wrist blinked red. Still, he worked. Outside, alarms began to quiet. Power readings stabilized. The ship's engines cooled slowly to safety levels. Vera stood at the console, eyes wide. He did it. Valen exhaled deeply. He just saved the ship again. Minutes later, Elias emerged from the shaft, coughing but smiling. "Told you it would work." Vera rushed to him. "You're injured." "I've been worse," he said, waving it off. "You could have died," she snapped, her calm voice breaking for the first time. He smiled weakly. "That's how we know we're alive, Doctor." Vera froze. She wanted to argue, but she couldn't. There was something about his courage, quiet, natural, and unshakable, that words couldn't reach. Later, in the medical bay, as machines scanned his body, Vera sat beside him. "You risk yourself too easily," she said softly. Elias shrugged. "Where I come from, someone always had to take the risk. Otherwise, nobody gets home." Vera looked down. "You make it sound simple." "It's not," he said. "But you learn to keep moving. That's how we survived ice ages, wars, and even our own mistakes." She was silent for a moment, then asked, "Do you ever feel fear?" He chuckled. "All the time. Courage isn't not feeling fear. It's doing what you must, even when you're afraid." Vera looked at him thoughtfully. "You make fear sound useful." "It is," Elias said. "Fear reminds you that you're alive." A few days later, Vera gave her next lecture to the crew. She had been asked to speak about human psychology, but what she said was very different from her old speeches. She began, "I used to believe humans vanished because they were too violent, too emotional, too chaotic, but now I see they were something else entirely." The crew listened quietly. "Humans," she continued, "were not perfect, but they had one gift no other species I have studied possesses, the ability to rise again and again no matter the fall." In the back of the room, Elias stood silently listening. He didn't smile or move, but his eyes softened. Vera ended with, "Perhaps extinction is not the end of a species, only the end of those who stop believing in survival." When she stepped down, the crew clapped. Elias approached her slowly. "That was a good speech." She smiled slightly. "You inspired it." He raised an eyebrow. "Me? I just fix engines." Vera shook her head. "You reminded me that history is not written by those who fall, but by those who stand up again." That night, the two stood together in the quiet of the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly before them. Vera broke the silence. "Elias, do you ever miss your world?" He nodded slowly. "Every day. But missing something doesn't mean it's gone. It means it mattered." Vera looked at the stars. "You humans truly never give up, do you?" Elias smiled faintly. "It's what we do best." For a long time, they stood there saying nothing. The galaxy outside shimmered like a sea of light, and for the first time since she began studying humans, Vera no longer felt like a scientist studying an extinct species. She felt like a student, learning what it truly meant to live. The atmosphere on the Xylarian cruiser Venture Star had grown heavy after the warning message arrived. A dark, distorted voice echoed through the ship's comm system. The pirate faction known as the Ravagers of the Rift demanded the return of the human. They claimed that Captain Elias Ward belonged to them, or rather that his ancient human knowledge did. Dr. Vera Talun stood on the bridge, her mind filled with confusion. Just a few days ago, she had believed humans were long extinct, relics of a violent past. But now one stood beside her, alive and commanding attention like a storm in a quiet sea. The pirates' ships appeared on the holographic display, 7 large vessels, each armed with plasma cannons and grappling hooks made for boarding. The Venture Star was a research cruiser, not a warship. Captain Theric, the Xylarian commander, turned toward Vera. "We cannot outrun them. Our ship was not made for battle." Before Vera could speak, Elias stepped forward. His voice was calm but filled with authority. "Then we don't run. We prepare." The aliens turned toward him, some doubtful, others curious. Elias moved with quiet purpose, studying the ship's layout. "Your shields are strong, but your blind spots are here and here," he said, pointing to the tactical map. "They'll try to board from those points. Pirates always go for the weak joints," Vera frowned. "You sound certain." He gave a small, confident smile. "Where I come from, we had a saying, hope for peace, prepare for battle. I learned the second part well." As the ship's alarm blared, the crew rushed to their stations. Elias requested a small group of volunteers, those willing to stand guard at the key entry points. Many Xylarians hesitated. They were scientists, not soldiers. But Vera noticed something change in them when they looked at Elias. His calmness spread like fire through dry grass. Soon, a small team gathered. "Good," Elias said. "We'll use the ship's narrow halls to our advantage. They have more numbers, but we'll control their movement." He walked the corridors, marking areas for defense. He ordered the doors sealed and the lights dimmed. In the silence of the ship, only the low hum of the engines could be heard. Vera followed him quietly. "You've done this before," she said softly. Elias nodded. "Too many times. But this time I'm not fighting for Earth, I'm fighting for all of you." Vera looked at him, this strange, stubborn human who refused to see himself as a relic. There was something in his eyes that no data record could describe, an unbroken will. The first wave of pirates struck. The ship shook violently as magnetic claws latched onto its hull. Metal screeched as boarding tubes drilled through the outer walls. "Contact on Deck 3, shouted a Xylarian officer. Elias raised his voice through the communicator. "Hold positions. Don't waste your energy on open fire and wait until they step inside." The aliens obeyed. The first pirate pushed through the sealed door expecting panic, but instead a flash grenade rolled at his feet. The corridor exploded with light, and Elias led the defense with precision, using cover and timing rather than brute strength. The pirates fired wildly, but Elias had already shifted positions, directing his team to flank them from both sides. Within minutes, the invaders were forced to retreat, leaving behind damaged weapons and confusion. "Deck 3 secure," said Elias, breathing heavily. Vera, watching from the control room, felt her heart pound. The human strategy was not just clever, and it was brave. He fought as if the galaxy's fate rested on his shoulders, but the pirates were relentless. 2 more boarding tubes connected, this time on Deck 5. "They're spreading us thin," said Theric. Elias glanced at the map. "They're trying to divide us. Smart move." He paused, thinking quickly. "Then let's make them think they're winning." He ordered a fake retreat. The defenders fell back to the central corridor, pretending to flee. The pirates rushed forward, confident they had gained ground. That was when Elias triggered the trap. The floor panels opened and pressurized gas released into the hall, stunning the invaders. Elias and his team secured the corridor again without a single casualty. When the noise settled, Vera approached him. "You could have been a commander in any army," she said. Elias smiled faintly. "I was, but I never liked the title. I just wanted to keep people alive." Hours passed, and the ship trembled again. The pirates were preparing their final attack, a direct strike on the reactor. If they reached it, the entire vessel would explode. Vera saw fear spread through the crew. The Xylarians were not made for war, and the thought of fighting to the death terrified them. Elias saw it too. He stood on a raised platform and spoke loudly enough for the whole bridge to hear. "Listen to me," he said, his voice strong and steady. "I know you didn't sign up for this. None of you did. You're explorers, scientists, dreamers. But you're also alive. You've come too far to let fear decide your fate. The pirates think we'll surrender because we're outnumbered. They don't understand one thing: when we're not giving up." There was silence for a moment, then murmurs, then cheers. Even Theric stood straighter. Vera watched him with awe. Elias didn't need technology or weapons to inspire courage. His words alone lifted hearts. The final battle began. The pirates launched all their remaining pods, tearing into the ship's outer layers. Fire alarms rang. Lights flickered and smoke filled the corridors. Elias moved like he had done this 100 times, giving orders, pulling wounded crew to safety, sealing doors behind them. When the pirates reached the reactor chamber, he was already there waiting. They exchanged fire. Sparks flew across the metal walls. Elias ducked behind a console, breathing hard. The lead pirate shouted, "You can't stop progress, human." "The past belongs in a museum," Elias shouted back. "Then you're in the wrong exhibit." He activated the emergency coolant system, flooding the chamber with dense vapor. Visibility dropped to 0. The pirates stumbled in confusion, while Elias moved silently between them. Using non-lethal stun weapons scavenged from the ship, he incapacitated each one. When the vapor cleared, only Elias remained standing. Hours later, the fires were out. The pirates had fled, leaving their ships adrift. The Venture Star floated in silence, its hull damaged but alive. Vera found Elias sitting in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. His uniform was torn, his hands bruised, but his expression calm. "You did it," she said softly. He shook his head. "We did it. I just reminded them what they were capable of." She sat beside him, her long silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "You changed everything, Elias. My people used to say humans were dangerous, unpredictable, doomed by their own emotions. But now, I see those same emotions are what make you strong." Elias looked out the window. "Maybe, or maybe we just don't know how to quit." Vera smiled slightly. "That is something the galaxy will never forget." The two sat in silence, watching the stars drift by. For the first time in her life, Vera Talun, the scholar who once believed humans were history, began to believe that history might still be unfolding. And somewhere deep in her heart, she wondered what else humanity had left behind in the dark corners of the universe, waiting to awaken once more. The Venture Star drifted through the calm after the storm. The battle was over, but the echoes of it still lingered in the ship's metal walls. The crew worked quietly, repairing systems, sealing breaches, and cleaning away the remains of a fight none of them would ever forget. Elias Ward stood by the large observation window, watching the soft glow of distant stars. He had fought battles before, on Earth across colonies, even during the fall of humanity's golden age, but this time had felt different. It wasn't only about survival, it was about proving that humans were more than just a memory. Dr. Vera Talun joined him. Her posture, once proud and skeptical, was now softer, filled with quiet respect. "The crew keeps talking about you," she said with a small smile. "Some call you the Ghost Commander. Others say you're a legend come to life." Elias chuckled. "A legend, huh? I'm just a man trying to do what's right." "You've done more than that," she replied. "You've changed everything. The Union will have to reconsider what it knows about humanity." Elias turned to her. "What will you tell them, Vera? You're their historian." She hesitated. "I will tell them the truth, that I was wrong. Humans are not gone. They endure even in silence." For a moment they stood side by side looking out at the endless stars, but then Elias said something that made her eyes widen. "I'm going to find the rest." Later that day, Elias gathered the senior officers and Vera in the command room. A holographic projection of the galactic map shimmered above the table. "I found something in the ship's old database," Elias explained. "Before Earth went silent, we sent out several deep space missions, sleeper ships carrying colonists. Most records were lost, but this cruiser had fragments of a signal network. One of those signals still exists." The hologram zoomed in on a remote sector marked E47. A weak pulse flickered on the screen. Vera frowned. "That area is outside Union territory. It's been marked as a dead zone, unstable space." Elias smiled faintly. "Sounds like the kind of place humans would end up." Theorik, the captain, shifted nervously. "Traveling there will be risky. The region is known for radiation storms and pirate nests." Elias nodded. "I understand. That's why I'm not asking for orders. I'm asking for help." Vera looked at the captain. "If what he says is true, we could rediscover a part of history that everyone thought was lost." Theorik sighed. "Very well. Prepare the ship. We'll go to E47. The journey took weeks. The Venture Star passed through nebula storms and gravitational rifts. During the long voyage, Elias spent hours in the engineering deck, helping the crew adapt to the unstable conditions. His old human methods, practical, direct, and sometimes risky, surprised the Xylarians, but they worked. Vera often joined him, watching him fix consoles with improvised tools. "You never stop," she said once. He smiled. "Humans don't rest easy when there's work to be done." She tilted her head. "You really believe your people might still be alive after centuries?" He looked at her. "Hope is what kept us alive before. It might be what keeps them alive now." Her chest tightened at his words. She had studied 1,000 extinct species, but never one that refused to give up even in death. On the 42nd day, the signal grew stronger. "Coordinates locked," said the navigation officer. "Source identified. A planet orbiting a red dwarf star." The crew gathered as the Venture Star exited warp. Before them lay a small gray planet surrounded by debris and faint energy signatures. "It's quiet," said Vera. "No transmissions. No cities." Elias stared at the planet. "That doesn't mean no life." The ship descended through the thin atmosphere. On the surface, they saw crumbling metal towers half buried in dust. The ground was scarred by time, but here and there were signs of structure: domes, solar fields, and ancient landing pads. When they stepped outside, the air was thin but breathable. Elias took a deep breath and felt a strange warmth in his chest. The place was quiet, but it felt familiar. Vera scanned the ground with her device. The readings are strange. There's still power beneath the surface. Elias crouched beside an old access hatch. Then that's where we start. After hours of work, they forced the hatch open. A long staircase led into darkness. Vera activated her light band, illuminating rows of metal walls covered with old human symbols. The air was cold but dry, preserved by centuries of isolation. At the bottom, they entered a large chamber filled with cryogenic pods. Most were empty or damaged, but a few still blinked with faint blue lights. Vera gasped. "Elias, these are human designs." Elias approached one of the pods. The glass was fogged, but he could make out the faint outline of a person inside. His hand trembled as he wiped away the frost. The face beneath it was unmistakably human. "She's alive," Elias whispered. After all this time, the crew worked carefully to reactivate the systems. One by one, the pods powered up. Monitors beeped weakly, then grew steady. The first human colony, long forgotten, began to stir. Hours later, one of the pods opened with a hiss. A woman inside coughed weakly, blinking against the light. Her skin was pale, her voice dry. Who are you?" Elias smiled gently. "My name's Elias Ward. I'm from Earth. You're safe now." Her eyes widened. "Earth? That can't be." "Earth fell. We thought everyone was gone." "Not everyone," he said softly. "You're proof of that." Vera stepped forward, recording every detail. "This is impossible. A living human colony." The woman nodded weakly. "We were part of Project Dawnlight. We were supposed to rebuild humanity if Earth fell. But we lost contact. The systems kept us asleep, waiting for a signal that never came." Elias's voice grew firm. "The signal has come now." For days, the Venture Star's crew helped awaken more colonists. Some pods failed, but many succeeded. Soon, over 100 humans stood blinking in the pale light, meeting the aliens who had found them. It was a sight that no historian had ever imagined. Humans and Xylarians working side by side, fixing the past together. Vera watched it all in silence, overwhelmed by emotion. Everything she had taught, every lecture she had given about the extinction of humanity, all of it was wrong, and she was glad it was. When she found Elias later, he was standing near the colony's power core, watching the lights flicker back to life. "You did it," she said quietly. He shook his head. "We did it. You believed when you didn't have to." She smiled. "Belief is something I learned from you." Weeks later, when the colony was stable and the survivors healthy, the Venture Star transmitted a single message across the galaxy. Humanity endures. They are not gone. They are awakening. The message spread faster than anyone could imagine. Across hundreds of worlds, scholars, leaders, and explorers stopped to listen. For the first time in centuries, the name human carried hope, not fear. Vera stood before the Galactic Union Council, giving her final report. Her voice was calm, steady, and filled with awe. "For generations, we believed humanity had vanished. We thought they destroyed themselves. But we were wrong. Their courage outlasted time. Their hearts kept burning even when the stars forgot their names. Humanity is not history. Humanity is the beginning of history." The hall was silent, then erupted in applause. Back aboard the Venture Star, Elias watched the sunrise over the colony. A soft wind brushed the dust across the plains. Humans and Xylarians worked side by side, repairing old machines and planting new seeds. Vera joined him again. "So what now, Captain Ward?" He smiled, eyes reflecting the bright horizon. "Now we rebuild. Not just Earth's legacy, but something greater. A future where humans and aliens stand together." She nodded slowly. "You proved me wrong, Elias." He looked at her kindly. "Maybe you weren't wrong. Maybe you were just early." As the first new dawn lit the sky of the forgotten world, Vera knew one truth above all others. Humans were not a story of the past. They were the heartbeat of the future, and as long as even one of them stood beneath the stars, humanity would never be history again. In the endless dark of the galaxy, there were stories whispered among the stars. Stories about a race that once changed the fate of entire worlds. They were called humans, Some said they were wild, some said they were brave, and some believed they were long gone. To Commander Cirith Kale of the Valari Dominion, they were nothing more than myths told by older officers to sound wise. Humans? She had once said with a cold laugh, a species that burned too bright and ended too soon. They are only legends. For Cirith, truth was what could be proven. She was a soldier of the Dominion, born on the shining world of Vena Prime, where the sky never darkened and order ruled every life. Logic guided her every decision, and faith in stories had no place in her mind. Her ship, the Veil of Dawn, moved through the emptiness of space like a silver blade, its hull glowing softly under the light of distant suns. Her crew, made up of disciplined Valari soldiers, obeyed her without question. One day Cirith received new orders from High Command. She was to lead a small exploration fleet to an unclaimed system on the edge of the galaxy. It was known as the Sol Grave, a place filled with dead planets and ancient wrecks. Most believed it cursed, but the Dominion wanted resources and Cirith wanted success. "Commander," said her second officer, Lieutenant Varin, as the holographic map flickered before them. "These coordinates, they match the old Terran sector." Cirith raised an eyebrow. "Terran, you mean the human region?" "Yes, Commander," he said carefully. "Records say the humans once lived there before the Great Collapse." Cirith smiled faintly. "Records also say they destroyed themselves. Let's see what their ashes left behind." Their fleet jumped through the void and entered a system of dying suns. The first planet they scanned was gray and lifeless. The second was torn apart by gravity storms. The third, however, showed something strange, a heartbeat signal. At first, the reading confused the crew. It wasn't biological, yet it pulsed like one, rhythmic, steady, and repeating. A code pattern, simple but deliberate. Could it be natural interference? Baron suggested. Cirith frowned and leaned closer to the screen. "No, that's language. It's a transmission. Old but structured," the technician confirmed. "Commander, the signal matches a human communication code. Pre-collapse era." Cirith stared at the blinking rhythm, a faint smile curling on her lips. "Impossible," she whispered. "Humans are extinct." Still, something inside her, curiosity, pride, or perhaps a spark of doubt, made her give the order. "Prepare a landing team. Let's see who's sending ghost signals from a dead world." They descended onto a frozen planet covered in endless white ice and jagged ruins. Wind howled through broken towers and ancient machines lay half buried under the frost. Cirith stepped out in her dark armor, her long cloak flowing in the bitter wind. "Scan for life," she commanded. "None, Commander," came the reply. "But the signal is coming from beneath us, deep underground." The soldiers opened a metallic hatch frozen in place. Beneath it lay a tunnel that led into darkness. They followed the path until they reached a large chamber filled with old machines, glowing faintly with blue light. At the center stood a crystal chamber, and inside it, a figure. Cirith approached carefully. The figure was humanoid, tall and dressed in an ancient uniform with a broken emblem on the chest. A blue circle crossed by white stars. His face was calm, almost peaceful, frozen in time. Her heartbeat quickened, though she didn't understand why. "Is this a human, Commander?" the medic whispered. "Cryostasis chamber. Still active after all this time," the crew gasped softly. Cirith touched the glass. Beneath the frost, the man's eyes were closed, his body untouched by decay. For a moment, the silence of the chamber felt heavy, sacred even. "Activate it," she said. "Commander?" Varin hesitated. "He could be dangerous. Or he could be knowledge," Cirith replied. "And knowledge is never dangerous to those who control it." The medic nodded and began the process. The chamber hissed, lights blinked, and slowly the ice began to melt. Steam rose and warmth filled the air for the first time in centuries. The man's eyes fluttered open, gray and sharp, filled with quiet strength. The soldiers raised their weapons, but the human didn't move. He looked around slowly, taking in the faces of aliens he had never seen before. Then his gaze fell on Cirith. His voice was hoarse, quiet but steady. "Where am I?" "You are in the presence of the Valari Dominion," Cirith said firmly. "You have been asleep for a long time, human. Your world is gone." He blinked, processing her words. "Then I suppose we finally lost," he said with a faint, sad smile. Cirith crossed her arms. "Who are you?" He straightened, his movements precise and calm. "Captain Elias Ward, Terran Defense Force, serial number 14-21A. "And you are trespassing on Terran ground," her soldiers murmured, some amused, others confused. Varen whispered, "He still thinks he has authority." Cirith, however, studied him carefully. His voice carried no fear. His eyes held no panic. There was something unshakable about him, something ancient. "You've been frozen for hundreds of years," she said. "Your kind destroyed itself." Elias looked past her at the ruins. "Perhaps we did. Or perhaps the galaxy moved on without us." His calm made her uneasy. She had faced warriors, pirates, and rebels, but this man, this human, was different. His presence felt like standing before a storm that hadn't yet begun. They brought him to the ship for questioning. Throughout the interrogation, Elias remained composed. He answered what he chose, ignored what he didn't, and often asked questions of his own, about the stars, about who ruled them now, and whether Earth still existed. When told that Earth was gone, he only nodded, as if he had already expected it. "What is the purpose of your survival?" Cirith asked finally. "To remember," he said simply, "and to fight if needed." "Fight?" she repeated, almost amused. "You are alone." Elias looked at her directly. "A human doesn't need an army to stand for what matters." There was silence. Even Varen looked uncertain how to respond. Later that night, as Cirith stood alone on the command deck, she watched the frozen planet below. She should have been satisfied. She had found a living relic, proof that legends could bleed. Yet her mind was restless. What did it mean that a human still lived? What did it mean that even after centuries he carried himself with the calm of a soldier ready for battle? The next morning, the technicians reported something strange. The heartbeat signal that had led them to the planet, it had stopped. But a new one had begun. This one wasn't coming from the planet. It was coming from the ship's lower deck where Elias was being held. Cirith went there herself. She found him standing in front of the viewing window, staring out into space. The monitors nearby displayed the same rhythmic code, steady, strong, repeating again and again. "What are you doing?" she demanded. Elias turned slowly, his expression calm. "Calling home," he said. Cirith frowned. "Home? There is no home left for you." The human smiled faintly. "Then maybe I'm calling to remind the stars that humans once lived here." Cirith didn't know why, but she didn't stop him. Something about his quiet defiance unsettled her, and yet, deep down, she respected it. When she returned to the bridge, she found herself repeating his words in her mind. A human doesn't need an army to stand for what matters. For the first time in her life, Commander Cyrith Kale began to wonder if the legends were true after all.